When the student you sacrificed everything to train publicly humiliates you and steals your life's work, death feels like the universe's cruelest joke. But when you open your eyes 15 years earlier with the chance to choose differently, you realize the greatest power isn't avoiding betrayal. It's recognizing that some people deserve your investment while others never did. My name is Professor Elena Volkov, and I died at 63, alone and disgraced, watching my former protégée Miranda Chun accept a Grammy Award for composing a symphony that I had written. She thanked everyone but me. The woman who had discovered her talent, paid for her education, opened every door, and ultimately watched her steal everything. But when I opened my eyes again, I was 48 years old, sitting in a high school auditorium in Boston, about to hear Miranda Chun play piano for the first time. This time, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. This time, I was going to walk away and find someone who actually deserved my mentorship. I watched 16-year-old Miranda take her seat at the piano for the school talent show. She was already beautiful, long dark hair, graceful movements, the kind of natural stage presence that drew every eye in the room. In my previous life, I had been captivated by her immediately, had seen her as the daughter I'd never had, the legacy I would leave behind. What I hadn't seen was the calculating ambition beneath the surface, the willingness to destroy anyone who stood between her and fame, the complete absence of gratitude or loyalty. Miranda began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Her technique was good, very good for a high school student. But I could hear the flaws that my previous self had been too enchanted to notice. The mechanical precision without emotional depth, the perfect notes without understanding the music's soul. In my first life, I had approached Miranda after her performance and offered to take her on as a private student. I had waived my usual fees, had given her access to my connections in the classical music world, had spent countless hours teaching her not just technique but composition, music theory, the history and heart of every piece she played. I had poured 15 years of my life into making Miranda Chun into a star, and she had repaid me by stealing my compositions, claiming them as her own, and destroying my reputation when I tried to expose the truth. This time, I sat through her performance with my hands folded in my lap, my face carefully neutral. When she finished and the audience applauded, I remained seated. I watched her take her bows, watched the other teachers congratulate her, watched her parents beam with pride, and then I stood up and walked out of the auditorium. I had a different student to find. According to the program, there was one more performer after intermission, David Park, playing an original composition. In my previous timeline, I had left before David performed, too eager to talk to Miranda about studying with me. I had never heard him play. This time I waited. When the lights dimmed and a gangly teenage boy with thick glasses took the stage, I could hear people settling back in their seats with less interest. David wasn't striking like Miranda. He was awkward, nervous, his hands shaking slightly as he adjusted the piano bench. Then he began to play. The piece was original, as the program had indicated, and it was extraordinary. Raw and unpolished, yes, but filled with genuine emotion and innovative harmonic progressions that showed real musical intelligence. David was composing from the heart, not just playing notes on a page. I sat forward, my full attention on this boy I had overlooked in my previous life. His technique needed work. There were moments where his fingers stumbled, where the passion of his composition outpaced his ability to execute it. But the music itself was brilliant, showing a depth of understanding that Miranda's perfect but soulless performance had lacked. When David finished, the applause was polite but subdued. Most of the audience didn't understand what they'd just heard. But I understood. I had just witnessed raw genius that needed refinement, guidance, and support. After the talent show ended, I made my way backstage. Miranda was surrounded by admirers and well-wishers, her parents already talking about private lessons and competitions. I walked past her without a second glance, and found David packing up his sheet music in a corner, alone. "That was an exceptional composition," I said. David looked up, startled. "Oh, thank you. I know it wasn't perfect." "Perfection is overrated," I interrupted. "What matters is that you have something genuine to say through your music." That composition showed real understanding of harmonic structure and emotional progression. "Where did you study?" "I didn't. David said, looking embarrassed. I mean, I've taken piano lessons since I was 6, but I've never studied composition formally. I just write music sometimes. Just write music, I repeated. Do you have more compositions? Some. They're not very good. Let me be the judge of that, I said. I pulled out my card. I'm Professor Elena Volkov. I teach piano and composition at New England Conservatory. I'd like to hear more of your work. Would you be interested in coming to my studio sometime this week? David stared at the card like it was a winning lottery ticket. You want to hear my music? But I saw you watching Miranda Chun earlier. Everyone says she's the most talented student in the school. I thought you'd want to teach her. Miranda has technical skill, I said carefully. But you have something much rarer. A genuine voice. Technical skill can be taught. What you have cannot. David's face flushed with pleasure and disbelief. I'd love to come to your studio. Thank you, Professor Volkov. This is incredible. As I left the school, I passed Miranda in the parking lot. She was still surrounded by her entourage, basking in the attention. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of curiosity. She'd noticed me watching her perform, had expected me to approach her afterward. I smiled politely and kept walking. David came to my studio 3 days later, carrying a worn folder full of handwritten compositions. We spent 2 hours going through his work, and I was even more impressed than I'd been at the talent show. The boy had an instinctive understanding of musical structure and emotional expression that most composers took decades to develop. David, I said after we'd worked through the third piece, I want to offer you something. I'd like to take you on as a private student. Normally, I charge $200 per hour, but I can see that you have exceptional talent that deserves to be nurtured. I'm willing to provide instruction at a significantly reduced rate if you're serious about developing as a composer and pianist. David's eyes widened. I'm serious. More serious than anything. But Professor Volkov, even a reduced rate, my parents, they're immigrants, they work really hard but money is tight. I don't know if they can afford. What if I told you, I interrupted gently, that I'm willing to provide full scholarship instruction in exchange for your commitment to the work? I believe in your talent, David. I want to help you develop it. Tears filled David's eyes. Why? You don't even know me. I know your music, I said. That's enough. Over the following weeks, I developed a teaching relationship with David that was everything my relationship with Miranda had never been. David was humble, hardworking, and genuinely grateful for every lesson. He practiced obsessively, absorbed feedback like a sponge, and approached music with a passion that came from love rather than ambition. Meanwhile, I heard through the school grapevine that Miranda had found another teacher, a less established instructor who was dazzled by her technical skill and happy to promote her as a prodigy. Good. Let someone else invest their time in a student who would ultimately betray them. 6 months into working with David, I received an unexpected phone call from Miranda's mother. Professor Volkov, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the school office. I wanted to ask if you might reconsider taking Miranda as a student. I appreciate your interest, Mrs. Chun, but I've already committed to another student and my schedule is quite full. But surely you could make room for Miranda, Mrs. Chun pressed. She's so talented, and she specifically mentioned wanting to study with you after hearing about your reputation. Her current teacher is fine, but we want the best for Miranda. I understand, I said. But the best teacher isn't necessarily the most prestigious one. It's the one whose teaching style matches the student's learning needs. I don't believe I would be the right fit for Miranda. There was a pause. Then Mrs. Chun said, Is this because Miranda is Asian? I've heard that some classical music teachers have biases. Mrs. Chun, I interrupted firmly, my current student is also Asian American. This has nothing to do with ethnicity and everything to do with musical philosophy. Miranda is an excellent technician who will do very well with a teacher who can help her perfect her performance skills. I prefer to work with students who are interested in composition and developing their own musical voice. Those are different paths. After I hung up, I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, but awareness that I was making a choice based on knowledge from a future that hadn't happened yet. Was it fair to judge Miranda for betrayals she hadn't committed in this timeline? But then I thought about the calculating way she'd looked at me in the parking lot. The same expression I'd seen countless times in my previous life when she was evaluating what I could do for her career. Some things I was learning were fundamental to a person's character rather than shaped by circumstance. David, meanwhile, was flourishing under my instruction. Within a year, he had composed a string quartet that I helped him submit to a young composers competition. He won second place, and the recognition gave him confidence to start sharing his work more publicly. "Professor Volkov," he said after we got the news about the competition, "I don't know how to thank you. You've changed my life." "Thank me by continuing to work hard and staying true to your musical voice," I said. "Don't let anyone convince you to compromise your artistic integrity for commercial success." "Never," David said seriously. "I promise." 2 years into our work together, I was diagnosed with cancer. The same cancer that had killed me in my previous life, but caught earlier this time because I'd known to watch for symptoms. The prognosis was good with treatment, but it meant several months of chemotherapy that would leave me weak and unable to teach at my usual intensity. I called David to explain the situation. "I'll need to reduce our lesson schedule for a while. I'll understand if you want to find another teacher during this time." "No way," David interrupted. "Professor Volkov, you've been there for me when no one else believed in my music. I'm not abandoning you because you're sick. We'll work around your treatment schedule. Whatever you can manage, I'm grateful for." During those difficult months, David proved his loyalty in countless small ways. He brought me soup his mother made, helped me organize my music library when I was too weak to stand for long periods, and even performed at a small fundraising concert to help with my medical bills despite my protests that it wasn't necessary. "You invested in me when I had nothing to offer in return," he said simply. "Now I'm investing in you." It was everything Miranda had never been in my previous life. When I'd gotten sick before, Miranda had been frustrated by the disruption to her lesson schedule, had complained that my illness was affecting her preparation for important competitions, had ultimately found another teacher and started distancing herself from me. David's loyalty during my illness sealed my decision to invest even more heavily in his development. When I recovered, I used my connections to help him get into a summer program at Juilliard, wrote recommendation letters for his college applications, and introduced him to influential figures in the contemporary classical music world. By the time David graduated high school, he had a full scholarship to study composition at Yale, and had already had several of his works performed by professional orchestras. His success was entirely his own, built on his talent, his hard work, and the opportunities one had helped create for him. Meanwhile, I watched Miranda's career from a distance. She had indeed become successful, as I'd known she would. Her technical perfection and stage presence made her a favorite at competitions and recitals. She'd attended a prestigious conservatory and was building a reputation as a performer. But she wasn't composing. Without access to my compositions to steal, without my guidance in developing her own voice, Miranda remained what she'd always been. A brilliant technician without originality. A performer without a soul. 5 years after my rebirth, I attended a concert where David was premiering a new symphony. The piece was mature, sophisticated, and deeply moving. Everything I'd known he was capable of creating with the right support and training. After the performance, as I was congratulating David, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. Miranda Chun, now in her early 20s, was standing near the back of the reception, watching David receive praise from critics and music industry professionals. Our eyes met across the room. Miranda's expression was complicated. Envy certainly, but also something that might have been regret. She started to move toward me, but I turned away and focused my attention back on David, who was excitedly telling me about ideas for his next composition. Later that evening, I found a message on my phone from Miranda. "Professor Volkov, I've been following David Park's career. I can't help but wonder what my path might have looked like if you had chosen to teach me instead. I'd love to talk with you about possibly working together now, on composition. I think I'm finally ready to develop my own voice as an artist." I stared at the message for a long time. In my previous life, this was exactly the kind of appeal Miranda had made when she wanted something Humble, self-aware, perfectly calibrated to appeal to my desire to nurture talent. But I had lived through the consequences of falling for that act. I had watched Miranda take everything I taught her and claim it as her own. I had died alone and disgraced because I'd trusted someone who valued success more than integrity. I deleted the message without responding. 3 days later, Miranda tried again, this time showing up at my studio after a lesson with David had concluded. Professor Volkov, I know you got my message. I just want a chance to talk with you about studying composition. I know you chose David back in high school, and I understand why. His original work was impressive even then. But I've grown as an artist since then, and I'm ready to move beyond just performance. I need a teacher who can help me find my compositional voice. Miranda, I said carefully, I appreciate your interest in developing as a composer, but I don't think I'm the right teacher for you. Why not? She asked, and I heard genuine confusion in her voice. I'm a dedicated student, I have the technical foundation, and I'm willing to work hard. What am I missing? How could I explain that I was judging her based on actions she hadn't taken in this timeline? That I knew with certainty she would betray me because I'd already lived through it once? Miranda, you're an exceptional pianist. You have a gift for performance that many musicians would envy. But composition requires something different. A willingness to be vulnerable. To expose your inner self through your music. To create something original rather than perfect. I'm not sure that's what you're looking for. You don't know what I'm looking for, Miranda said, and there was an edge to her voice now. You're making assumptions about me based on what? Seeing me play piano once in high school? Hearing that I'm successful as a performer? That's not fair. She was right in a way. It wasn't fair to judge her for crimes she hadn't committed yet. But I also knew, with the certainty that came from having lived through it, that taking her on as a student would lead to the same devastating outcome. I'm sorry, I said. But my decision stands. There are many excellent composition teachers who might be a better fit for you. I can recommend several if you'd like. Miranda's face hardened. This is about David, isn't it? You've invested so much in him that you don't have room for anyone else. You've chosen your protege, and that's it. I've chosen to work with a student whose approach to music aligns with my teaching philosophy, I said. That's all. No, Miranda said. That's not all. You've decided I'm not worth your time, and I want to know why. What did I do to make you dismiss me so completely? Nothing, I wanted to say. You haven't done anything yet. But you will if I give you the chance. Instead, I said, Miranda, not every teacher-student match is right. I wish you the best in your career, but I don't believe we would work well together. Miranda stared at me for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. I felt a complex mixture of relief and discomfort. Had I been unfair? Was I denying her opportunities based on a future that might never happen now that I'd changed the timeline? But a week later, my doubts were erased. David came to his lesson looking troubled. Professor Volkov, something strange happened. Miranda Chen contacted me through social media. She said she wants to collaborate on a composition. That she's been working on something that needs a composer's perspective, and she thought I might be interested in partnering with her. What did you say? I said I'd think about it, David replied. But something about her approach felt off. She was very focused on the commercial potential, talking about how a collaboration between a rising composer and an established performer could be marketable. It didn't feel like she was interested in the music itself. Trust your instincts, I said. The weird part is, David continued, she kept asking questions about you. How long I'd been studying with you, what your teaching methods were like, whether you'd shared any of your own compositions with me. It felt less like she wanted to collaborate with me and more like she was trying to get information about you. There it was, the calculating opportunism I'd seen so many times in my previous life. Miranda wasn't interested in developing her own voice. She was trying to find another way to access mine. And when I'd refused to teach her directly, she tried to get close to my student instead. David, I said, I want you to be very careful about any collaboration offers that seem focused on commercial success rather than artistic integrity. The music industry is full of people who will try to use your talent for their own advancement. Is that what Miranda is doing? I don't know for certain, I said honestly. But I know that you should trust the feeling that something is off. Your instincts about music have always been sound. They'll serve you well in professional relationships too. David declined Miranda's collaboration offer, and I never heard from her again. I followed her career from a distance. She continued to be successful as a performer, winning competitions and performing with major orchestras. But she never developed as a composer, never created anything original that would have required genuine artistic vulnerability. Meanwhile, David's career soared. By the time he was 30, he had composed works that were performed around the world, won prestigious awards, and been commissioned by major orchestras and chamber ensembles. He credited me in every interview, spoke warmly about my mentorship, and made sure I was invited to every premiere and honored at every award ceremony. The vindication came 10 years after my rebirth. David won the Pulitzer Prize for Music for a symphony that he dedicated to me. At the ceremony, he spoke about how I had recognized his talent when no one else had. How I had invested in him not for glory or recognition, but because I believed in his musical voice. Professor Volkov taught me that music is about truth and vulnerability, he said to the audience. She showed me that the most important thing an artist can do is stay true to their vision, even when commercial success seems to require compromise. Everything I've achieved is built on the foundation she helped me establish. I sat in the audience crying, not from sadness but from the profound satisfaction of having made the right choice. This was what mentorship was supposed to be: mutual respect, genuine gratitude, a relationship built on artistic integrity rather than exploitation. After the ceremony, a journalist approached me. "Professor Volkov, you're known for being extremely selective about your students. You've taught David Park for over a decade, but he's one of very few private students you've taken on in that time. What makes you decide to invest in a particular student?" I thought about Miranda, about the path I'd avoided by trusting my knowledge of who she would become. I thought about David, about the joy of watching genuine talent develop when given proper support and guidance. I look for students who approach music with humility and passion rather than ambition, I said. Students who want to say something through their music, rather than just be successful. Technical skill can be taught, but artistic integrity has to come from within. When I find a student who has both talent and character, I'll invest everything I have in helping them succeed. That evening, I received an email from an unexpected source. Miranda Chen. Dear Professor Volkov, I'm writing to congratulate you on David Park's Pulitzer Prize. His speech about your mentorship was moving, and it's clear that you've had a profound impact on his development as a composer. I'll be honest, watching his success has made me reflect on my own career and the paths I didn't take. I've built a successful career as a performer, but I've never created anything truly original. I've never found my own voice as an artist. I used to think that was your fault, that if you had chosen to teach me instead of David, I could have become what he has become. But I've realized that's not true. You saw something in me all those years ago that I wasn't willing to admit. That I was more interested in success than in music itself. David deserved your mentorship because he wanted to create something meaningful. I wanted to be famous. Those are fundamentally different goals. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that your instinct about me was correct, even though I didn't understand it at the time. You protected your art and your integrity by not teaching me, and David benefited from the attention you were able to give him as a result. I hope you're proud of what you've accomplished through him. You should be. Miranda Chen. I read the email 3 times, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. There was vindication, confirmation that my instincts had been right. But there was also sadness for the artist Miranda might have been if she'd approached music with humility instead of ambition. I thought about responding, about telling her that it was never too late to develop artistic integrity, that she could still choose to pursue music for its own sake rather than for fame. But in the end, I simply archived the email and turned my attention back to preparing for David's next lesson. Some students deserved my investment. Others didn't. And learning to tell the difference was perhaps the most important skill I'd developed across 2 lifetimes. 15 years after my rebirth, the same age I'd been when I died in my previous life, I was healthy, successful, and surrounded by students who valued what I had to teach them. David had gone on to become one of the most respected composers of his generation. Several other talented young musicians had sought me out based on his recommendation, and I'd built a studio of students who approached their art with the same integrity and passion that David embodied. I never regretted walking away from Miranda. The greatest gift my rebirth had given me wasn't the chance to avoid betrayal. It was the wisdom to recognize which relationships were worth investing in, and which would only lead to pain. Some teachers measure their success by the fame of their students. I measured mine by the knowledge that every student I'd chosen to mentor had honored that trust by staying true to their artistic voice, by treating music as something sacred rather than a path to celebrity, by remembering where they came from and who had helped them along the way. David's success wasn't my success. It was his own, earned through his talent and hard work. But I'd given him the foundation, the guidance, and the opportunities that allowed that success to flourish. And he had repaid that investment not with betrayal but with loyalty, not with theft but with credit, not with abandonment but with enduring gratitude. That was the difference between a student worth investing in and one who wasn't. And this time, I'd chosen correctly.